How's everybody doing? I am Taylor. As always, I have not changed in any way, so I'm still me. And this is my friend Angie. And we have been in contact with each other for about 3-4 months now, 5 months. Does that sound about right? Around there. And our initial meeting was really interesting. It involved my mom and Vine, that old dinosaur, and ever since then we've been working together and growing closer as friends and just really having a good time. So Angie, how has this experience been for you, or what do you want to say?
It's been really good. First, I had no idea what to expect. Like, we started off, making the Vine compilation from all your mom's Vines. Mm-hmm. Then after that, you started a podcast, before, during. I started off like that, and then progressively, I ended up editing your videos, helping you out, giving advice, that sort of thing.
Yes, because what I found is that I am extremely inept at social media, and I think that without Angie, I probably wouldn't have come across what I feel like I found as my niche, which is the hashtag TaylorWise tweets, which I think I'm just now finding the foundation of that and what I can build on top of that, which is really great. And I probably would have given up making videos or come back to it way later in my life if it wasn't for Angie and her editing abilities and her just amazingly smart, intuitive sense when it comes to social media and all the networks of friends that she already has on there. So really appreciative. So editing, you are very much a pro, and I don't know how you acquired that skill, but it definitely far surpasses my ability. So what programs do you mainly use to edit?
I use iMovie for basic editing. I use Motion, I think it's called Motion. Sometimes Premiere Pro, and I think that's it. It's basically those few different ones.
Okay. Yeah, that's what you've told me in the past. I just wanted to get a good head knowledge of all of those. I also use iMovie. I've made some videos for my school, and some of the videos on my channel are self-edited. They're probably the poorer edited ones, but yeah. So our process right now basically is I'll just go into my backyard or wherever I happen to be, and I'll just kind of film what I'm thinking about. Excuse me, choking up there. I will go in my backyard and just film some whatever I'm thinking, and then I'll send it off to Angie, and they'll edit it up and make it beautiful and make it digestible, and it just really makes the process so much easier and so much simpler for me to be able to just think about what I need to say and then produce it, rather than having to worry about editing it and everything. So that's been great. And with this new series, the hashtag TaylorWise, where I kind of expound on my tweets that leave a lot of people guessing, I'm really excited to see where that goes and the potential that's there. So Angie, you live in Canada. You live in what most Americans would assume is a frozen tundra land. I myself have been to Canada and can attest that it is nothing of the kind. I was there during this summer, but I must say that it is quite a beautiful place, and I wouldn't mind living there. But again, I haven't been there during the winter. So you live in a specific part of Canada, a part that I have not been in. Where do you live?
I live in Newfoundland, which is the east coast of Canada.
Yeah. I was looking at some pictures the other day when I had some time, and it is very much like kind of the country, like the whole state is like very country, and the city is fairly small, but nonetheless extremely charming. And I would absolutely love to go there and see all the beautiful sights, which may be something that happens next summer. So that's pretty cool. But there's a lot to do in Newfoundland, especially for people who are a lot more into like wildlife and maybe not so much into materialism and stuff like that. So tell us some of the things that you like to do in Newfoundland.
I mainly like to travel. Like, I like to go for drives, explore new places, go on trails, like walking trails, and take pictures, those sort of things. There is, I think, a few trails here that you can go on and you can see all sorts of animals. So there's like birds, owls, I'm not sure what kind of other animals, but there is like a few different ones of those.
Let's talk a little bit about YouTube. What is the biggest event that you're looking forward to on YouTube coming up? Like any releases from your favorite YouTubers or any kind of events or anything that's going on?
Maybe seeing like more of what you'll create. Even though I do like the behind the scenes stuff, but like still seeing like what more of you'll be creating. I don't know. I don't really watch a whole lot of YouTubers as I used to, actually. Not as much.
I've really been digging Thomas's Sanders sides. That's just, it's genius. Every single time it blows my mind. And the fact that Joan and Talia write that is really cool too. I really want to play a part in that at some point. I haven't talked to Thomas about it, but I don't think he'd be opposed to it. It's just whether or not I can really get into that mind space, because what they produce is so freaking smart. I don't know if I could write to that level. I think a lot of what I produce is like, kind of like, it's similar to it in how it's higher level thinking and kind of advice in a way, but I do it much more like straight out of just like, this is what I would do, this is what you shouldn't do, this is what really cool people do and stuff like that. Whereas he kind of goes inside himself and discovers different aspects of himself. So I really, really dig those Sanders sides. And it's great to see a new side of Mr. Sanders in each and every new released episode. So that's what I really look forward to. There's also this other guy, Jordan Peterson, that I really like, and he's been doing a biblical study of the psychological approach to Genesis, which is pretty esoteric, but it's really fascinating. I also love watching drone videos on YouTube. I like watching like reviews and people doing crazy stuff with drones, but I bought one recently and it's like very technical. It's very like, it can be frustrating, but once it's up and flying, it's really fun, and it lasts for about 12 minutes. And then you go back inside and charge the battery, which, by the way, mine's probably charged again, but now it's dark outside, so I won't do that. But yeah, YouTube is quite a space because people can literally post whatever they want. Although I know that recently Thomas was telling me that YouTube blocks certain content for people who are below the age of 18. What do you think about that?
It kind of depends. Like, it depends like what they're blocking. I know for the longest time they blocked everything that is involving LGBTQ+. So like all that content was blocked for like everyone, which was kind of disappointing. Like even like the coming out videos, I think they were, that was all blocked. I guess it kind of depends about like what kind of stuff's like being blocked, I guess. Like if it's like vlogs or challenges or something like that. Like I don't know why that would be blocked for people, but I guess it kind of depends.
Yeah, I'd love to read like what the CEO or whoever's making the decisions on that is their thinking behind it, because you know the freedom of speech is an extremely powerful thing, and it's something that I'll defend to the grave. But you know, he's got to have some, he or she's, I don't know who the CEO of Google is, but they've got to have a reason behind it, and I would just like to hear what it is. My best guess is that, you know, they think that it's harmful. There's like certain content, whether it be people like hurting themselves or people like blowing stuff up without license or something like that, you know, or people flying drones in like places where you're not supposed to. That's a big one that I could see potentially building an argument for blocking. But if it's something where it's just like this, where there's two people talking, you know, unless it's somebody talking about like doing violence, right, then I don't really see a problem with any kind of speech. You know, even talking about doing violence, I could see that being protected as well, because you don't necessarily have the intention of doing it. But that's a little bit of a gray area that I could also see blocking. But certainly people talking about matters of self-identity and whether it's getting to an extreme point where people are talking about like their sexual identity or their gender identity and that kind of stuff, like even if it's to that extreme, like it still shouldn't be blocked. Like I think people are perfectly capable of having a conversation about their identity without it becoming violent or intrusive to the like human psyche. So I don't know, again, I'd just like to hear what their thoughts are on blocking it. So yeah.
Even though, like, let me think. I know there's a YouTuber recently came out and exposed this family that was doing like really bad things on video, and so far I think their channel is still up, unfortunately. But like they're doing like really bad things for attention on videos, and somehow it's not blocked. So I don't know what's gonna happen then, but hopefully something's gonna happen.
Yeah, no, there was this guy in Gainesville where I live, and he was getting pretty popular. Like he was making a decent amount of money off of making videos, but he was like going around and like scaring people and like sometimes grabbing girls like really inappropriately, and he got banned. And that was crazy. Like I didn't really watch his stuff much, but I'd seen it here and there, and it was pretty funny. And I never would have thought that he would start doing that kind of stuff, to where he would like, you know, invade people's privacy and just be a real idiot, you know. So now whether or not I think that should be blocked, I don't know, because I think it's useful for society to know that people are capable of doing that, and that happens, you know. I can see YouTube's point of view, though. They don't want that kind of content on their website, but I think YouTube kind of transcends just print. Like it's not a newspaper, it's not something where like everybody knows that what stuff that's posted on YouTube is not from Google or from YouTube. Like it's from people who use that. And so for them to delete like that kind of stuff, it's just it leaves some questions to be answered. But I also see where they're coming from. They want to keep it clean for the kids at home, so that's all well and good. So I wonder to what extent a conversation can go in the direction of LGBT and like identity association conversations before it's deleted. So I think it'd be really interesting to open up a channel and then have like 12 different conversations, and each conversation gets progressively closer to what the threshold would be, and then that way you can kind of measure what YouTube is really all about. Like say a bunch of different type of terms, use different phrases, and then use them in like levels of seriousness. So if I was to say like some people talk about LGBT matters, like that's not talking about it, you're saying some people do it, and then contrast that to me making a come out video. Like I just wonder what the differences would be, and in between talking about people talking about it and then doing it, I want like implementing several shades of gray videos, if you will, showing different variations of those progressions and seeing which ones get blocked and which ones don't. But I also would imagine that you have to have a certain level of viewership for YouTube to really care or to take you seriously as someone who's going to corrupt the youth. So it's all pretty interesting. What I really like, though, is what YouTube is doing just in general, and creating a platform for people to get their ideas out there and make themselves known. What is, other than Thomas, what is like your favorite YouTube producer?
Probably Jon Jorgenson, I think his name is. Yeah. the guy who does those spoken word arts, the ones that I'd showed you before.
Yeah, no, his stuff was pretty awesome. I was checking that stuff out the other night. It's great. It gets me really pumped up too, so I got to be careful when I watch it. I'll be up the rest of the night just like drawing and like writing about stuff. But yeah, I think everybody should go check that stuff out. It's really cool.
So what happened to your podcast that you're doing with Tyler?
Well, that is still going. It's not going strong, but it's still going. Tyler went down to Key West for a large part of July, but he will be back, and when he does, we'll be doing some more videos together. I also get the impression that Tyler is very busy, and so it's kind of, and also I am very busy, so it's kind of hard to find a time to get together, but we definitely will be getting back together and talking about China more and America more and stuff. So hopefully we'll get to do that before the fall semester starts on August 20th, but we'll see. And then I think I am going to put a lot more emphasis on kind of this backyard style, like thought expressions and stuff like that. Just because I think that that's a lot more digestible for viewers, and I think it's also a lot easier for us to produce with our process and our time capacities and our technical prowess and everything. But I'm most excited about that. But whenever I can get Tyler to come over here or I go over there, like, I'm super excited about it. So yeah, that's basically the 411 on that situation.
Yeah, because I was like wondering, I was like, okay, so he hasn't done one in like a really long time, and now he's like doing this whole other thing, and I'm just like, did he just like stop it and like leave it, or?
Yeah, and I'm kind of just like trying different things, you know. I want to see, you know, I don't really care too much about how many people view the videos and stuff, but I also don't want to just make stuff that's never going to be seen or only be seen by a few people. So I acknowledge that the 2-hour content, while first off it's really difficult to edit that stuff because it takes a long time to. It's also difficult for people to really appreciate it because it's so long, and you know, people's days are busier and busier, it seems, and so fitting in an hour or 2 hours of videos can be difficult, especially when it's on YouTube and not on like the podcast app. So that's kind of where my thinking is with all that. I'm not giving it up, but it kind of just comes when it comes, and we go from there. But again, I am really excited about this backdoor or backyard stuff because it's just so much easier, and it's a lot more of what I'm capable of doing. So
yeah, I think like what you're doing with that is like definitely gonna be a lot more better. I think not like the podcasts weren't bad, because I mean like they were good too, but I mean with these new ones that you're doing, I think a lot more people are gonna be able to watch them. It's gonna like get out way more faster, I'm thinking. What are some future things that you'll talk about in like your backyard videos?
Yeah, so I'm definitely gonna stick with the idea that I believe her name was Queen Wolf 68 gave me on Twitter. She was talking about the tweets that I tweet out, the Taylor Wise tweets, and I definitely want to keep hitting those. So I definitely want to keep hitting the Taylor Wise tweets and talk about what those really mean, because in 158 characters or however much it is, you really can't say a whole lot, which is kind of the point of Twitter, is to be able to consolidate big ideas into small ideas. And so what the video in the backyard allows me to do is really make those small ideas even bigger, and talk about them more. But some of the topics that I want to cover are, I definitely want to keep going with suffering and what that, how that plays in our society and in the role of the individual. I want to talk about the individual. I haven't talked about that a whole lot. I really want to dive into like identity, and because I think that that's a huge thing on Twitter right now. Like people in their bios will put their like sexual orientation and their gender and stuff. And I've always wondered, like, I've always been just fascinated by what people put in their social media bios, because you can put whatever you want. You can put anything. Like, there's no code for what you put. Like, I suppose there's a standard for like professionals, like presidents and business owners. Like they'll put specific things every time, but for social media, like talents like myself and just people who have Twitters, you know, like basic users, like they put anything. And it's just fascinating. There's a consistent trend of people putting their sexual identity on there, which is something that I find strange, because like, why is that the first thing that comes to mind when you're thinking about who you are? I don't think it's a good or bad thing. I just find it unique, and it's never something that I would like think of to put on my my Twitter thing, that I'm straight or whatever. Like I am, but like, why does anybody care about that? So anyway, that's just my thought with that kind of stuff. I might tackle that in more of a form of like identity and how individuals approach identity and how identity is formed. I kind of want to talk about materialism. I want to talk about, I'll just leave it at that, because there's a lot that I want to get into there and it gets kind of technical. But I also want to talk about America more broadly, and maybe even get into some history of some different things. I'm definitely not a history buff, but I've been exposed recently to some historical events that have really been life-changing, and I want to talk about those a little more. But what would you like to see me talk about more?
Kind of like mental health things, suicide, basically all the things that like no one talks about, kind of thing.
Okay.
I know I talked to a
Taboos.
few lately from the group chat that we're in, and they've been saying like they really like that kind of things. Like if you made videos like that, they'd really appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing, is like I feel a little bit disconnected from the whole social media, not social media scene as a whole, but like a lot of people on Twitter, from what I found, have like an experience of life that I haven't really shared a whole lot. But like objectively, I think I could do something along those lines, because I have gone through bouts of depression to some extent, but I definitely don't think that I suffer, and this is something I've talked about in other videos, but I definitely don't think I suffer or have suffered to the extent that people seem to be suffering on a daily basis on Twitter. So I feel like, I guess to simplify that, I feel like they should be the ones making the videos, not me. But, you know, maybe I should. So, and you're suggesting it, so I think it is something that I want to do. It's just a matter of like, how do I tackle that? Because my mind goes to, all right, well, what are some statistics on those type of things, anxiety, depression, and suicide? And I feel like that's not really very helpful. Maybe it kind of lets people know that you're not alone, but I think that just going on Twitter for a few minutes, you figure out, okay, I'm not alone. Like, there's a lot of people who suffer with this kind of stuff. But actually, now that I'm thinking about it, potentially, and this is kind of the way that I'm approaching a lot of the new stuff that I want to come up with, is that I have been successful in overcoming depression and anxiety in a lot of ways. But I've never really thought about it as overcoming those things. I've always just thought about it as kind of like a struggle that everybody has, and that like nobody is going to go through their life without suffering depression or anxiety to some extent. In a lot of ways, I've been successful, but I've never really considered myself to be more successful than anyone else. It's just I'm doing all right, and I think that maybe I could dig a little bit deeper, kind of like how Thomas does, into how I've done well, how I've managed to build coping mechanisms and defenses against, you know, going deep into depression or being overcome by anxiety. But like, I guess my hesitation is that I'm not very experienced in being in depression for a long period of time. But perhaps that may qualify me to be someone to comment on it. So I'll play around with that concept more, but I appreciate your suggestion. Anything else?
Nothing really else comes to mind currently.
I definitely want to have a constant theme in my videos where so far it's kind of emerging to be kind of advice, but also like just stream of consciousness style, like thought expression. But I think advice is a good kind of place to be. I know that I'm capable of more entertaining things like singing and things like that. But I think that would take a lot of time to produce, and I think it's not going to make people progress effectively. I think it'll kind of numb the pain for a little while, and people will see me dancing or singing, and it could potentially be something that's like, you know, distracting, but it's not going to solve the problem. And I think that's the real thing that I want to do, is give people the tools, and maybe share some experiences of how I've gotten tricked by depression and gotten into it, but then also found a way out of it. And I think that that's more of a long-term solution than just distracting or entertaining, which, by the way, the word entertainment is originally comes from the Greek term, which means distraction. So I live in a state with Disney World in it, and so I am very well acquainted with entertainment and thus distraction. So, and a lot of people come here for the beach, which is a more healthy distraction, but it can be immersive. So I guess I'll be trying to be educated on the darker themes, as you put it, and get more in touch with that kind of stuff. I have been doing some research in terms of that guy that I told you about, that I like, Jordan Peterson. He talks a lot about ways to restructure and organize your life, but he also has some other views that wouldn't be as popular on YouTube, and so I have to figure out how to reconcile that imbalance. But so far, I think this has been a really productive and interesting conversation. Again, I really appreciate all the hard work you do for the editing and everything. So that's great. Anything else that you want to say to the listeners? All right, so we're gonna come to a close. This has been a very productive and pretty cool conversation. We've talked a little about kind of who you are and how we've collaborated together, and Canada, and also YouTube, and kind of what we like and what we don't like about YouTube. But why don't you leave us with a encouraging quote that hopefully will inspire our listeners and be a useful thing to hear. So this is live from Newfoundland, Canada.
Basically, okay, if you're dealing with hate or someone in your life that's not treating you well or something of any of that sort, never let someone with the significance of a speed bump become a roadblock in your life.
Yeah, and when you first told me that, I was like, wow, you know, I was like, that is so true, because there's been so many people in my life who I admired, and they may have even been really smart and like funny and cool, but like when you kind of get to know them a little bit more, they're really selfish, or they're really, you know, they're going through a time in their life where they're just not able to be a good person in a way. Not that, you know, I think everybody's capable of being a good person, but you know, at some points people are just, whether they've gone through something or they've got a little bit of an ego going on, they're just not a healthy person to be around. And so that's a very useful quote. And I would also add to that, I'd say, you know, if you feel like you could be someone who could help that person who is being a speed bump or an obstacle, you know, try as much as you think you should, as much as you feel like your conscience is prompting you to, but also be very careful that you don't do it too much and start to let that affect other parts of your life. So do as much as you can, but set limits for yourself and set boundaries. So, because you got to put yourself as number one without being selfish. So I think that's a great place to figure out how to conclude this video. And Angie, I thank you very much for all that you do and for taking some time out of your day to make this vid. So
you're welcome.
Awesome.
It's been like really fun.
Yeah, no, I've had fun too. I think that learning new things about Canada and just talking about YouTube, our favorite thing, is always fun. But for all you listeners out there, like and subscribe. Go follow Angie on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And have a great night. or have a great day whenever you, or have a great morning, whatever time you're watching this. So, all right, adios.